thanks for joining us at Real Estate Insiders TV. I'm Danny Poulos with the elite lending team at Phillippi. This morning we're going to spend some time with Phillippi from BWG Realty, and we're going to be talking about the difference between someone trying to sell the house on their own or using a realtor. And Joy's been doing this quite some time, so she's really going to help us out with some expert advice. So Joy, tell everybody who you are and what you do and how long you've been doing it.
My name is Joy Phillippi, and I have been a real estate broker now for over 20 years. I'm licensed in 3 different states, but my primary market is here in Florida.
Beautiful. So let's get right into it. I am a seller. I've got a house that I want to sell. Figure it's in the $300,000 range. I don't need a realtor.
Sure you do.
Well, yeah, that's what we're going to get to.
Sure you do.
What would be my reasoning to thinking, why would I want to do it on my own?
Typically, the person who wants to do it on their own wants to do it because they think they're going to save money. And commissions is the first and foremost savings that a for sale by owner would assume that they're going to be able to put in their pocket rather than in someone else's.
So how much money are we talking about that I might be looking to save?
Okay, a commission typically in this area is anywhere from 5 to 6%, so let's say $18,000 on that transaction.
All right, so in my head, as soon as I'm thinking about selling my house, forget about the fact that I don't really know what it should sell for. I'm probably thinking more about what I'd like to get, right?
Right, and that's probably the first and biggest problem that a for sale by owner encounters is they don't know how to price the house. A real estate expert is in the market. They know the market and they know how to price the house so that it will sell in the shortest amount of time for the most amount of money. A typical seller is very emotionally invested in it, and they might think it's worth a whole lot more than it's actually worth.
I mean, I run into it all the time from being on the lending side of it, that if someone's got a house for sale and they owe $150,000, and instead of thinking about what the house might sell for, they're thinking about how much money they need to have when they move out to take it to for the next house they want.
Oh yeah, you're going to hear, but this is how much I owe on it, and this is all the money I've invested in it, and that's why I need to price it this way. And that is probably the biggest mistake that a seller can make, because the market doesn't care what you owe on your property, and the market doesn't care how much money you invested into your property. But the market is going to bear is what the buyer is going to pay for that
That's
house.
right. And let's think about the numbers as we go through this. So assuming a traditional 6% commission, a $300,000 house, we're talking about $18,000 that me as the seller, that's what I'm looking to get in my pocket that I think that I would be losing if I hire an agent to handle this whole thing for me. So that's our starting point. I'm trying to save $18,000. So, I mean, how do I, as a seller, even know how much to ask my house, except for those things you said don't matter?
Okay, first I want to point out one really important statistic, and it's been proven that houses that are sold for sale by owners typically sell for 20% less than they are by realtors. So right there, you already can tell that the seller doesn't know how to price his house accordingly to what the market's going to bear, and that's where you need the expertise of a realtor in order to do that.
Right, well, for some of us, you can't do the math as quickly as you.
Thanks.
So 20% on $300,000, we're talking about
$60,000.
$60,000. You just got that right?
Yeah, just like that. Just like that.
So we just went from I'm trying to save $18,000 to you saying in most cases I'm going to get $60,000 less for one reason or another, which we'll get to by using realtor. Okay, interview over. Let's just go home.
Right.
So let's think about the reasons for that 20%. So pricing the house. Go ahead. How do you know better than I do as a seller what my house should sell for?
Okay, I'm out there in the market every single day. I work with buyers. I know what buyers are looking for, and I know what buyers are willing to pay at any given time. But more importantly, we're an expert at looking at the comparables. And the market value of a home is dependent not on what the guy next door has his house for sale for, it's what houses have sold for. That is the most important number. And if a seller tries to do this themselves, typically they will come to their realtor and they'll say, by the way, my neighbor has his house on the market for $400,000, so my house should be able to sell for $400,000. And I love the story of the guy who told me he would not list for anything less until we pointed out to him that his neighbor's house had been on the market for 2 years.
Right.
It was never going to sell for that amount of money, ever.
And I know another thing that comes up often is even if another house in the area sold and they think of all the reasons why their house might be worth more, like their purple granite kitchen is priceless, but I mean, what's important to them is not what you're saying is important to the person that's coming in to buy.
Right, you make a really good point, because so many times the sellers are emotionally invested in what they've done to the home. And a realtor, just because they have an eye for it and have done this for so long, can diplomatically or guide them or help them to stage their home, or even point out to them that the value isn't in that beautiful purple marble, whatever they did. The value is in some of the other things, and those are the things that need to be highlighted and showcased to the public.
I mean, I can say from working with realtors over the last 25 years that when they take a listing, they can pretty much tell you what the house is going to sell for. All things aside, this, at the end of the day, this is what this house is going to sell for. So I guess that's a big advantage over a regular seller. Let's now think about the risks that are involved, someone trying to sell a house on their own, because I know what the paperwork can look like. So what type of risks do they put on themselves if they do it without an agent?
Well, there's more money involved in this particular risk, and one of the biggest risks I think out there is that realtors are very, very well versed and very, very knowledgeable in terms of what Florida, the state of Florida, requires in terms of disclosure. So there's a huge liability risk for a person who attempts to do this, the novice that goes out there and does it themselves. They could miss one document, they could miss one piece of disclosure and set themselves up for potential liability lawsuits after the closing by the buyer, which is going to cost them far more than that small commission that they are paying in order to ensure that all of those things are taken care of. When you talk about that stack of paperwork, we know all of the disclosures required. We know exactly what needs to be done. And even more importantly, we know all of the contingencies that are involved in there. And when money goes hard and when it's important that you lock certain things in. Sellers, if they don't do it every day, they just don't know. And most sellers are going to need, in addition, an attorney. But again, realtors are looking at this every single day and working with these documents every day.
Yes, so the scary part about that, it seems, is the house is sold, I get my check as the seller, maybe I already put that down on a new house, that money is spent, and now months down the road, something comes up missing in that paperwork, and now there's a lawsuit, and again, I'm trying to save
Here comes
$18,000.
The paper serving you with a lawsuit from the buyers, and now you have all kinds of expenses associated with defending your position.
Right, and again, if you really wanted to cover yourself, you're going to have an attorney anyway. But so let's not even talk about that expense. If you're going to try to protect yourself, you're going to have an attorney if you don't have a realtor and an attorney. So you're going to have expenses just in getting the transaction done. The next thing is about just negotiating in general. As an everyday person, I don't think we're really involved in negotiating, almost never. Here's the price of something, maybe when you buy a car, and that's what you pay, and that's it. How is it different for a realtor? And I think that may have something to do with why you end up netting more at the end of the day.
Sellers become, as I said before, emotionally involved, and they're never more emotional than they are during the negotiating process. Because during the negotiating process, someone might come in and make let's say, a very low offer. Realtors are used to that. We know how to respond to low offers. We know how to guide our clients to respond to low offers. we know how to tell them how to counter that offer and how to inch to that point where they're going to still net or get exactly what they're looking for. A seller who's doing it on their own will say, no, I'm not taking that offer, and they'll walk away from it. Or they might counter in a way that completely turns off the potential buyer, and they walk away from the deal. So there's all kinds of skills associated with negotiating, but when you're negotiating for yourself, it's a lot tougher than having someone do it on your behalf.
Now, we're sitting here talking about sellers as if it's just a normal thing for someone to try to sell their house on their own. But what percentage of people even try to do that?
I think the percentage right now is less than 10%. So again, statistics, 90% of people are selling their house through realtors. So why would you want to limit your market to that 10%?
That's right. And the realtors that are working with buyers are also working with that 90%, because those are properties that are listed on all the multiple listing services, and they're advertised on the internet. So you sort of, when we get back to that, how to get 20% more, well, you got to figure if you're going to cut out 90% of the market, you're going to end up with, you're going to net less.
You better do some heavy investing in your marketing. And the FSBO, the for sale by owner, has virtually been shut out of most of the MLS systems throughout the country. There's over 900 of them, and they have to pay for all those third-party sites, and they have to do a lot of very, very professional marketing in order to get their homes into the same showcases as a realtor can do it.
I mean, really, by the time you break it all down with where you save money, how you net more money, and what it really cost you, forget about the things we didn't get into about having to show the house by yourself and security and risks and all that comes, that it's eliminated when you have the expertise of a realtor. Seems like a no-brainer. But at this point, make sure we take the time to tell everybody how to reach you. So if they have more questions about this or have a house to either list or to buy, they know who to call.
I can be reached through my cell number at 561-301-8079. Our website, visit it and look at all of our properties for sale, and it's bwgrealty.net.
Thanks so much for coming in today. Great information.
Chris.